Welcome back. I came back for another video and I am so pleased to be doing it. I had so much fun doing my last video and I'm literally so overwhelmed and thankful to anyone who clicked on it, watched it, commented, shared it, liked it. Like it means the world. So I have come back because I really enjoyed doing it. I actually really enjoyed like the editing process and everything to come to it. So we're back with another video. Today we're here a little bit late, I would say, considering it's the 15th of February currently, but I have my January wrap up, which I did do over on my Instagram, but I thought it would be rude not to do it here too. So I actually read 7 books in January. I don't physically have them all with me today, I have a few of them, but I do like to kind of pass on books to friends that I've read that I know I won't read again, that I think they'll enjoy. So I'll insert little pictures and stuff on the screen of the books I've read so you can see the covers. And I'm recommending to go get yourself a little drink or a cup of tea or something nice to sit down and watch this, because we're gonna have the chat. To kickstart my January wrap up, the very first book I read was 12 Secrets by Robert Gould. This was really kindly sent to me by Sphere Publishing, so I did get gifted this one, which I was super thankful for. And as soon as I got it, I read the blurb and I was like in such a reading slump that I was just like, do you know what, I'm actually gonna pick this up like right now, because it just sounded like something I knew I was gonna enjoy, and I was like, there's nothing better than like a crime thriller book, something fast paced to pull you out of a reading slump. So yeah, I jumped into this one. It was my first ever novel by Robert Gould. I think this is a pretty new one of his as well, and I think there's already a sequel coming out, or maybe it's already out by now, I'm not too sure. But yeah, I rated this one 3 stars. It was a bit of a... I was even reading the blurb to do this video and I was like, this book is just not that memorable to me, and like I would be someone who reads a book and takes in like, you know, every detail, and like I can recite a book like 4 years after reading it. So the fact that the storyline of this one didn't speak to me too much, like I think that says it all itself. I'll kind of read the blurb out and give you kind of an idea of what it's about. So this is about the main character called Ben, and his life changed forever one day when his older brother Nick was murdered by 2 of his classmates in school. It was obviously a crime that shocked the nation, and that kind of spiraled Ben into going down a career path of becoming like a private investigator, DI detective kind of person. So when a fresh murder case that just happened now, so like obviously the murder of his brother happened back when they were children, he's an adult now and he's like an investigator, and a new murder has happened, and this new murder has evidence that shines a light on what actually happened to his brother 20 years ago. So obviously it brings a lot of new stuff to light. Ben has a lot of suspicions. He realises there's a lot of people who know a lot more than they were letting on throughout the investigation and throughout his childhood. So yeah, it has a lot of twists and turns. I found it hard to concentrate on this one because there was nearly too much going on, I want to say. There's a lot of characters in this. There was a lot of times where I had to be like, wait now, who am I reading? And I'd have to like go back to the start of the chapter, because that could literally just be a me thing. But yeah, like overall I did enjoy reading it. Like it only took me like 2 or 3 days to read. I sped through it. It is a pretty quick crime thriller, but it just didn't grasp my attention fully. Is that the right way to put it? It just, yeah, it didn't do for me what I wanted it to do based on the blurb. I wasn't 100% gripped. I found there was a lot going on. Like it was hard to kind of keep up with all of the events that were unfolding, and then the twist at the end just didn't, like, you know, pull the rug from beneath my feet. So overall, like, I could see why people would enjoy this. I did enjoy reading it. It just wasn't something that I was like, oh, I'll read that again, or I don't think I would be too pushed to go and pick up the sequel, because yeah, I didn't love it that much. So yeah, a 3-star read to start the month. Wasn't great when I was already in a reading slump, but not the worst book ever. The month does improve, don't worry. I also want to point out, before I carry on, that all of these reviews will be spoiler free. Like anything that I'm talking about that happens in the book is just like you know, my take on what's already written on the blurb. I won't be giving away any spoilers or plot twists because I'm not that kind of person. Not me literally getting through one book and the battery dies. Start again. Let's go again. The next book I read in January was actually a graphic novel, which I just love. Like, I love them. I was obsessed with the Heartstopper series. I've read Pumpkinhead, Lore Olympus, Sad Ghost Club, and yeah, I had read Sheets. I own Sheets, the physical copy, and I had read it like a year ago. And for those of you who haven't read it, it's like the most beautifully illustrated book, and it's based around a ghost that is a sheet, obviously, and he just kind of helps guide this girl through like a mental health journey that she's going through after the loss of her mother. So at the beginning of January, I renewed my Kindle Unlimited subscription because they were offering it to me for like 99p a month for like the next 3 months. So I was like, go on, I'll do it. And when I renewed my subscription, I saw that they had the sequel to Sheets on there, which I was like, I'm grabbing this immediately because graphic novels are not cheap. And for a reason, because the artwork in there is beautiful, and yeah. So yeah, I decided I'd read that. Like, graphic novels are so quick as well. Like, you could easily read one in like 20 minutes, 40 minutes, like somewhere between there. So I was like, this will be the perfect little read now that I've been in a bit of a slump like since December. So I read that one evening in bed, and it was wonderful. It was so, so lovely. It was a follow-on story to exactly where the first one left off. And in this one we see our main character kind of make friends with a new group of people at school, and they tend to be kind of the more popular kids, so she's kind of just doing what she feels she needs to do in order to fit in, which kind of means she's not being true to herself, and in doing so she neglects her ghostly friends that live in her laundry. Her and her dad run like a laundromat, so yeah, she neglects him, and she starts ignoring other friends in her life just to fit in with this popular crowd that don't really have her best interests at heart. So this story was all about kind of like finding yourself, finding who you are without having to try fit into what society deems popular or like the coolest thing at the minute. And in doing so, she really finds like her true qualities in life, and in doing so she actually really helps out somebody else who's been struggling mentally, and she starts to see that she needs to stick around those who were with her on her mental health journey rather than just trying to get newer, cooler friends now that she mentally is feeling a bit better. So yeah, it's a lovely little journey. Like, it's crazy how much emotion and like powerful stories these graphic novels can tell, and I think it's amazing because like they're definitely directed more so towards like young adults, like teenagers and young adults, so I think they have a really great message for that like age group. The next book I picked up was Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover, which I've actually passed on to a friend now, so I don't have it, so I'm gonna leave the cover somewhere here. I am not like a huge Colleen Hoover stan, but I do enjoy reading her books, and I can acknowledge that her books are ones that you can read when you're not in a very concentrating headspace. She writes them so that they're very easy to read, which is like great if you were in a slump like me. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna pick up a Colleen Hoover book. I've not read too many of hers yet, but I'll see how this one goes. So not me literally googling the characters' names because I can't remember. Ah, this one is free on Kindle Unlimited too, so if you're a Coho fan and you have Kindle Unlimited, this one's free. Okay, yeah, so the main character's name was Kenna, and she had just served time in prison for an accident that happened to her boyfriend. She ended up leaving the scene of the crime and therefore was kind of held accountable for his death, because if she had have stayed, he probably would still be alive. So it's a very conflicting story, and I was very interested to like find out what happened in that scenario. But when she was convicted of her crime and went to prison, she was actually pregnant, and she gave birth, and her daughter was taken from her and obviously given to her partner's parents because her parents are not in the picture. So she gets out of prison 5 years later and has had no contact with her daughter since, because obviously her boyfriend's parents do not want anything to do with her because of everything that went on. So she buys a little apartment in the town where her daughter lives. She adopts a cat, and she decides that she's going to try and slowly build a life for herself and prove to her boyfriend's parents that she is capable of seeing her daughter and being around her daughter. She gets to the town, goes for a drink, meets this guy. They kind of end up hitting it off. They have a little romantic fling together. It's very quick. And then she realizes that he is actually somebody that she knows from her past, but didn't ever meet them. So she knew his name but had never actually met him, and when she puts two and two together, she realizes that her fling with this man might be a conflict in her getting her life back with her daughter. So yeah, it was a very different Colleen Hoover book than anything I've read before. Like, I feel like the whole prison thing and like the accident and everything was like a new swing on things, and it was not at all what I was expecting when I went into it, because I obviously hadn't read the blurb since I bought the book, which was probably way before. But yeah, like, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. It was an easy read. It was quite a nice read. It had a lot of depth to it. There was a lot of like character development and like learning about the characters and what they had been through, and how, like, you know, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors in anyone's life. That's kind of the like message I feel like it gave off. I was like overall a little bit disappointed in the end. Like, I wasn't like, I came away from it being like, yeah, that was fine. It was fine. Like, I didn't absolutely love it, and I was very torn between whether I was going to rate it 3 or 4 stars, because I was like, oh, there was aspects of it I really liked, but then overall at the end I wasn't like blown away. So I think like if I really had to like come down to what are you rating this book, I think it would be like a 3.5 stars, because it was just somewhere in between. It wasn't quite a 4 star and it wasn't exactly a 3, so yeah, 3.5. It's not something I felt like I wanted to hang on to, which is why I passed the book on. It's not one I'd reread, but I don't regret reading it. I did enjoy it. I'm sat in bed one night and I'm like, right, what do you want to read? Like, what are you in the mood for? I had kind of set myself like a loose TBR, like I'm trying to do the whole like 1 book per month chosen by a friend. So obviously like I picked 12 books that 12 of my friends picked for me. I could do a whole other video on that actually and show you what books they did pick for me. So I had that one lined up, but I just wasn't feeling the one that they had picked right that second. So what I picked up was a completely impulsive, not decided read, and they're my favourite because as a mood reader, that's just how I do. So the book I picked up was The Heights by Louise Candlish, and let me tell you, when I was going through my like books and reading blurbs and trying to be like, what do you want to read, the blurb of this one gave me goosebumps, and that's why I was like, oh, I need to pick this up like right now, like give me it. So immediately sat down. I think I read this across 2 days. Like it was one of them ones that you're like, right, I'm into it, like tell me what happens. But it did fall very flat. It makes me sad. But yeah, like this one was just nothing, in my opinion, like what it was described on the blurb. Like let me just read the blurb for you. So it says, "The Heights are a tall, slender apartment building among the warehouses of Tower Bridge. Its roof terrace is so discreet you wouldn't know it existed if you weren't standing at the window of the flat directly opposite it. But you are. And that's when you see a man up there, a man that you'd recognise anywhere. He's older now and his appearance has subtly changed, but it's definitely him, which makes no sense at all since you know he has been dead for over 2 years. You know this is a fact because you're the one that killed him." Does that not pack a punch? Like, I was literally like, what? Give me that. Let me read that. And I have had this sitting on my bookshelf for like 2 years. So it was my first Louise Candlish. I did really enjoy her writing style. I really enjoyed her characters. The only thing that let me down in this book was like the plot, I suppose, and the twist. It played out more like a drama than I would say a suspenseful thriller. you kind of don't know like whose side you're on. It's one of those books where it's told from one character's perspective for the first 50%, and then in part 2 it swaps to the other person's perspective and it completely flips kind of what you've thought the whole way through. But it, for me, was in more of a like drama type setting rather than like, oh my god, I can't breathe, like this is so suspenseful. And like each character in it, there wasn't really any that you would like fully get attached to. They all had their flaws, which I thought was written really well, because there was times where you were like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? But I actually really like that, and I really enjoy a flawed character. Like I don't always love when you love the main character. Like I do like when you're like, they frustrated me, or why are you doing that? So this definitely has that, but the ending and what was the twist at the end just fell so flat for me. I just kind of was like, almost like eye rolling, being like, oh god, okay, come on, get on with it. So yeah, I did end up rating it 3 stars, simply because I enjoyed my time reading it. I really enjoyed the writing, the characters were great, but for me, the plot twist and the thrilling aspect of it didn't quite live up to what was kind of given on the back of the book. And maybe that's my fault for interpreting it wrong, but you can't love every book, and books are subjective. So, you know, I know other people that I follow on Bookstagram have rated this like 5 stars, so definitely like don't ever take my reviews as like this is a bad book or this is a good book, because I would never say that. There's books out there that I know other people really dislike that I've loved. So if I rate something like 3 stars, it still means that I would recommend it. It just means that like there was something missing for me personally, and yeah, that was the case with this one. Okay, next up was the book that I was talking about that my friends picked for me for my 12 books in 2023. So what I did was I asked 12 friends to pick me books, and I put all of those books into a generator wheel, and then at the beginning of each month I generate which book I'm going to read for that month. So for the month of January, the very first book I pulled out was Carrie, Soto is Back, which was really kindly picked for me. My past experiences with Taylor Jenkins Reid have been good, so I was excited for this one. I really enjoyed this book, like really enjoyed this book. So we're following Carrie Soto, who in this book is like a renownedly internationally famous tennis player. She has won like everything there is to be won. She is now in retirement, and this story begins with her deciding that she is going to go back and reclaim her titles, because obviously there is new up-and-coming tennis stars who are fantastic, and one of them is like on the rise to winning and taking over the titles that Carrie had won. So she can't be having that, and she decides that she's going to come out of retirement to go back and reclaim her title as like the #1 female athlete in tennis. So the book starts with that, but it jumps from past to present, which I really like that in a book. I like when there's like dual timelines, and it takes you back to her original story of winning all these titles. And you wouldn't think like just a sports story would tell so much, but oh my god, Carrie Soto is a complex character. Like, this book is emotional. It takes you through her journey of her dad being her coach, like her family life and losing her mother. It talks about her love life, how she's treated by the media and her other sports stars, and then in present day it talks you back to the relationships she has with those people now, and like all the kind of like resentment and feelings that she has like repented since that time, and how they unfold as she joins back playing the sport. But I couldn't put this down. Like, I literally couldn't put this down. The minute I put it down, I was like, ma'am, like, you need to read this, because I know she's gonna love this, even though it is made up, and there's so many little nods to other Taylor Jenkins Reid's books in here, probably some I missed because I haven't read her entire backlist yet. But yeah, I rated this 4 stars overall because I bloody loved it. Like, it wasn't, I can't explain it, but you know when you get that feeling in your chest when a book is a 5-star read? I didn't fully get that, but like, I really enjoyed it. Like, I will be recommending this book to anyone. Like, anyone could read this, whether you like sports or whether you don't. It's just written so well and it's so enjoyable. So yeah, solid 4 stars from me. Next up, are you ready? Are you ready? We have my first 5-star read of 2023 and I'm so excited about it. I managed to get my hands on an early copy because this book wasn't released yet when I read it. It is out now, and I just knew I needed it. Even though I own like 3 or 4 of this author's books already, I haven't read them, but it was just the title of this one. I was like, I need to read this, like right now. I dropped everything, picked it up, and that is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. My little horror heart was like, haunted house, give me a bit of that. When it comes to like horror in general, like whether it's books or movies, like my favourite like horror trope is like haunted houses and possessed dolls, and this book has both of those things. So yeah, so because this one is a horror and it's quite dark, I recommend you look up the trigger warnings before reading it, just in case, because there is quite a lot that happens in this book and it is not for the faint-hearted. It's a story that follows Louise finding out from her brother Mark that their parents have tragically passed away in a car accident, and she needs to like uproot her life at that exact minute to fly back to where her parents live to sort through their home and look into whether they're gonna sell it or not. So yeah, she goes back, she meets her brother Mark. He is a difficult character. Like, he was hard to read. Like, the one thing about this book was that both characters, both Louise and Mark, will get under your skin. Like, they are your typical cliche horror characters that are just so annoying and just will not communicate. But you do really grow with them with the story, and you do kind of become attached to both of them, even though they're both quite messed up people. But to begin with anyway, there is so much conflict between these two characters. They have not spoken in a long time and would not have spoken had it not have been for the passing of their parents. So sorting through the house and kind of finding out who was left what was left in the will, it's a tricky process, and there's a lot of arguments, but getting into selling the house means they need to go through all the contents of their parents' home. Their mother was an avid puppet collector. She collected puppets, she made puppets, and yeah, I think you know where this one's going. The puppets, there's a lot more to them than just lifeless dolls. They are both like completely in denial about the fact that something paranormal is happening. Like, the things that are happening are not normal, and they're like those people who, you know, like in movies like Paranormal Activity, where like all the cupboards would fly open at the same time and the characters are nearly like, oh, it's just a breeze, it's nothing to worry about, and you're stood there like, are you for real? Are you for real? You kind of get a bit of that, but oh my god, like the descriptions of the puppets and like the things that are happening. Don't read this at night. Do not read this at night. The story itself has a lot of depth. I was not expecting that. Like, there's so much that unfolds throughout this story, like so many hidden dark secrets. Like, the more they go through their parents' home, the more memories are unlocked that they've repressed, the more secrets come out, and the more they find out what was hidden from them in their childhood through adulthood. That kind of explains almost everything that went on in that household. It digs deep. The story digs deep, and it's so good. Like, so good. Like, everything just came together. It was dark, it was scary, it was gruesome. I literally just need this to be made into a movie pronto. Like, why has Grady Hendrix's books not been made into horror? And I'm saying this after only reading one. So solid 5 stars from me, and I will be running to read the rest of his books now. And with that last book pulling me right out of my slump and giving me everything I wanted from it, the next book I picked up was based on, I needed another solid 5-star read, and I knew exactly where to go to get that. I had started this series last year, yeah, like the beginning of last year, and the very first book was like, I couldn't get over how good it was. And then I read the sequel a couple of months later, which was amazing, but more like a 4-star than a 5-star. So I knew picking up this one, it was either going to be 4 or 5 stars, because let's be real, this series is consistent. So the book is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson, and this is the 3rd book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. Oh my god, this was just a high 5 stars from me. Like, if you've not read this series, read this series. It's so good. I'm a huge fan of YA thrillers anyway, but this one just blows all the others out of the park. Like, these books are dark. Like, they are dark. If you've not read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, like, just briefly, it's based around a school student named Pip, and she decides to start a podcast, written blog type thing, where she discusses crimes that have had happened in her town that she thinks have not been solved correctly. And basically, by doing so, she gets herself mixed up in all sorts of trouble, because obviously there's people who want to hush her. Basically, she continues book 2 with podcast 2, and this book 3, she is starting with another mystery story. It starts off with Pip realising that she thinks she might have a stalker. She started noticing that there's been like chalk drawings left on her driveway that depict quite awful images. She's also found some dead birds in her garden, which she starts to believe is no longer a coincidence. And then she starts to realise that she's being followed and stuff. So she starts looking into another case, and she's starting to think that the stalker has something to do with the case, so she's trying to be careful. What I really actually admired about this book was, in this one we really see Pip's trauma play out, which is something I always find in like crime or thriller books that's not prevalent, is that you don't really get to see the struggle of what the characters go through, or like they go through some really sort of traumatic event with a murderer or a killer or a crime, and afterwards they're just like, yeah, chip off the shoulder, you know, it's fine. But in this one, Pip is struggling with everything that she's gone through in the past 2 books. She has started taking pills to sleep. She's keeping everything secret from her parents and her partner Ravi, who Ravi is just top tier, like, book boyfriend material. He's amazing. But yeah, you can really see it starting to take its toll on her, and by doing so she's starting to get a little bit like flimsy with looking after herself and being more careful when it comes to these things. But oh my god, the mystery in this book, everything like goes back to book 1. You know when people are able to do that, like write their series, and everything that happens in book 3 makes you rethink everything that happened in book 1. Like, there's reoccurring characters, they're talking about past crimes, but so much is unveiled in this book that answers so many things from book 1 that were already answered but are now, you're shown a new light and shown that there was a lot of things that Pip was fooled by. But oh my god, this is so cleverly written, like so cleverly written, and I am just so sad to see this series end because I loved it so much. It does have a very nice ending. It's quite sad, it's a very sad book, but I just cannot rave Holly Jackson's series more. Like, I'm obsessed. And I recently bought her new book, 5 Survive, which I showed in my last video, which is in my January book haul. So I'm definitely going to have to pick that one up soon, considering how highly I rated this series. So yeah, get to it if you haven't got to it, because you won't regret it. And that concludes all of the books I read in January. So we did have a really good reading month overall. There was no DNFs, there was nothing I rated under 3 stars. So for me, like, that was a really successful month, really enjoyable, and thankfully those last 2 5-star reads have really like got my reading going again. Like, all I want to do is read at the minute. I'm halfway through February and I've read some good books already, so I'm very excited already to do my February wrap up. I really have like a good few ideas of things I want to do on this channel, but for this video I want you to leave a comment if you've watched it, if you've got this far. Thank you. I want you to leave a comment below telling me what like you'd like to see. Like, what's your favourite thing to watch on BookTube? Do you like challenges? I've seen a lot of those like like attempting to read for 24 hours, and I am very tempted to do that. I'm very tempted. I'm gonna need to do it like on a week where I don't have much on, because then I can catch up on my sleep. But let me know if there's any more challenges. Like, do you want me to try TBR challenges? Do you want me to go through my bookshelves? Is there any books you'd like to see? Let me know, because I'm just interested and I'm really enjoying this process of recording and editing videos, so I'm going to continue to do it. So if you choose to stick around with me and watch my videos, thank you so much. Like, I have so much love for you. But yeah, this concludes my little January wrap up. Give it a like if you enjoyed it, or subscribe. Let me know as well if you follow me on Bookstagram and you have a YouTube channel. Please let me know so I can go and follow you, because I have not only become obsessed with recording videos, I'm also watching booktube non-stop, which is great. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and there'll be a new video next week.